Hey, when it comes to visualizing, you can do it any way that's comfortable for you. You don't have to be confined to someone else's idea, and that includes Neville Goddard himself. He talks about SATS, the state akin to sleep, just before you fall asleep at night. Uh, you know, in that area between waking and sleeping, to get very relaxed, and that may be great for him and other people. Maybe it doesn't work well for you. I can tell you right now, it doesn't work that well for me because when I go to sleep at night, I like to go to sleep. And, sometimes I'll sit there. If I sit there and start visualizing stuff, it's, they talk about visualizing and eventually drifting off to sleep. Well, for me, it wakes the brain up and I end up more awake. And sometimes I end up with like a kind of, where you can't fall asleep at night. Uh, it keeps me awake, gets the brain going instead of being relaxed. So not all the time, but sometimes it has that opposite effect. So you may be one of those people, or you just may find sometimes I find myself the opposite of that, even where I get so relaxed that I fall asleep before I even feel like I visualized what I want to visualize. So you can do this in a daydreaming kind of state. You don't have to be in that state before sleep. You could do this. You could do this in the middle of the day, as long as you're, peaceful enough or alone enough. Like you could, sometimes I find myself, like daydreaming. You ever have like a vivid daydream where you're kind of staring off into space? Your eyes are completely open, but you're not here. You're in here, and you're playing a movie in your head, and you're just daydreaming, and it's very realistic. It's very realistic. That's just as good. That can work the same way. It doesn't matter. You can be in a completely awake state and just daydream it. It's all valid. It's all valid. You don't have to be worried about being stuck with one kind of technique, so to speak. So find out what works for you. Experiment with the various different ways of doing things, and sprinkle in some of the things you hear online because it might work great for you. Some people talk about the whispering technique, where you imagine that somebody's whispering something to somebody about your situation that you want to manifest, or whispering to you about it, or however they say that. You can look that up. All this noise in the background, I have cats. They're playing with boxes and things, and of course they choose right now to do this while I'm doing a video. So just play around with it. Have fun with it. Don't be stressed about it. Don't be all whatever, and decide that when it's done, it's done. It is done. It's already done. I need to manifest these cats to stop playing with these boxes. It is done. So, just play around with it. Play around with the different stuff and find out what you are more comfortable with and go with that. Okay? Proper mental diet, even what they call this robotic affirming that's going around, where you're just speaking what you want. You can speak it up here. I find a lot of times if I'm alone, it's okay to do it verbally. For me, verbally, when I hear myself speak it just, for me, that I like that better. But, when someo's around, they'll think you're, talking to yourself, or, my wife, what are you saying? One time I was in a room, and I'm not shouting, but just lightly speaking, affirming to myself. And I hear, who are you talking to? I'm not talking to anyone, Oh, so you're talking to yourself. You're nuts. That's what I hear. So, it's I guess it's better to do that when you're alone and nobody can hear it and you don't have to whatever. But you can always just do it up here as well. I just like when it's verbal. So I cherish my alone time when I can be alone with my thoughts and my affirmations. But you don't have to be confined to doing this stuff before bed. You don't have to. You can visualize any time you want. Could be in the middle of the day. Could be at your desk at work, for a few minutes or something like that, on your lunch break, whatever. It doesn't matter. It really, truly does not matter. I found that, to go back, something I've mentioned in other videos in the past, when I was unemployed, laid off from a New York City job, several years ago, going on almost 10 years ago. I remember being in the car with my wife and driving down this main strip where the New York City commuter buses would travel. And I saw my bus, a bus with a number that comes in and out of New York City. And I would look at it and I'd visualize myself right then and there in the car with her next to me, with the radio going. I would visualize myself getting on and off that bus. And, before you know it, I had somebody calling me who I used to work with in New York City saying, "You still need a job?" And I'm like, "Yeah, my unemployment's about to run out. I really need this." And this was after months of fruitless job search, where you would apply to jobs and then they would call you back and then they would lowball you on salary, and very frustrating. And it was just that act of visualizing myself back on that bus. And before you know it, people were calling me to tell me there was something here I should check out, contact this person. They already contacted them for me. And I went in and I interviewed, and the interview was completely relaxed, natural. And before the day was over, I literally went into New York City, did this interview. I was nervous about it, but I wasn't thinking about the visualizing thing with the bus. I didn't realize it was a shoo-in already, that it was already done. But, coming back out, and I remember, coming home. We were living in my parents' house at the time, and I remember my daughter was just born a few months before that. And I remember sitting down with my daughter. I have a picture of my daughter in my arms as an infant, and I literally still had that suspenders with the collar shirt on from the interview. I just had no tie, and it was open. The button was open on top. I have this picture, and it was literally around that time. The day wasn't even over. It was maybe 4 or 5 in the afternoon, and I had gotten the notice that you got it. It was at the time it was a consulting job. They ended up hiring me later at this place as a permanent employee. A year later, when they decided to get rid of the contractors, and they said, we're hiring, come on with us instead of through the contracting company. And the rest is history. I've been there ever since. I've spoken in my other videos about it. I'm in a white-collar union. I get collective bargaining raises. It just on and on. And the simple act of visualizing in the broad daylight of being on that commuter bus again when I was unemployed and I had already been, frustrated with a fruitless job search, and people were calling me. Now, and as Neville says, it seems so natural, okay? You easily could say it would have happened anyway. It was just coincidence. It was good luck, whatever you want to call it. Look, if a lot of people would say that. They would say, "What do you didn't influence that just by thinking about being on a computer bus? Reality doesn't work that way, pal." Well, I beg to differ. I think reality isn't really reality, and it does work that way. And I can't prove it to somebody scientifically. I couldn't care less whether they believe me or not. They can go on with it's usually the cynical people who are having a lousy time who hold those views. Not all the time, but, they don't always go by how much money someone makes either. Somebody can be very successful in one area of their life and be totally unhappy and unfulfilled in life itself or in other areas of their life. So don't let that one, people tend to think of monetary or salary or what you're worth, what you make as the final say on how you're doing in this life, and it's not always the case. Okay, it's definitely not always the case. You look at any number of famous or wealthy people, some of them end up committing suicide or just miserable or whatever. It's you can't go by just that. Okay, so just I beg to differ. I think that I believe, I know that I had a say over that. So just understand that's really how it works. Do your affirming, do all the other stuff, and don't be afraid about visualizing and imagining stuff when you're fully awake and aware, okay?